Hi there and welcome to the Herbal Moon Goddess podcast. One of the questions I'm asked quite frequently is, what's better, tarot cards or oracle cards? Is there a difference? And you know, the funny thing is I really prefer tarot cards, but in my collection, I probably only have maybe about 3 different tarot decks, and I have probably 20 different oracle decks. So while they both definitely have their place, I'm more of a tarot girl. But in this episode, I'm going to be sharing with you some of the differences between tarot and oracle and how you can use both sorts of decks. So tarot is generally a 78 card deck, or generally most tarot decks are 78 cards, and they generally follow the same structure, having those 22 major arcana cards and then having the minor arcana cards divided into the 4 suits and ranging from the aces all the way through to 10s, and then having the court cards, which the pages, the knights, the queens, and the kings. And so generally all tarot decks will follow that same structure. Some tarot decks are quite creative and they'll change up the names of some of the cards. For example, I do have different tarot decks where some of the names of the suits are different. So instead of cups, you'll have chalices. And some of the major arcana cards can be completely different as well. So instead of the Wheel of Life, it could be called the Wheel of the Year or something. Like, you can get really cool tarot decks which are themed to different things. I've had a cat tarot deck which just really captured that playful essence of cats and kittens. And even through the interpretations in the guidebook, it really just captured that catchy essence. But generally, all of these tarot decks stem from the traditional Rider-Waite deck. There are other more traditional tarot decks as well, but generally the Rider-Waite deck is the most commonly used, I would say. And to be honest, the Rider-Waite deck doesn't really resonate with me. It feels very old-fashioned. I don't know, I don't know if it's just the colors or something, but it just doesn't feel good to me. So I actually tend not to use the traditional deck, and I will opt for another version of tarot often. However, oracle decks can be any number of cards. They don't follow a certain structure like how tarot does. And so as an oracle deck creator, you can pretty much come up with any number of cards with any sort of messages. And so I find that different oracle decks, you know, they're often themed on different things. You can have spirit animal oracles, crystal oracles, or I don't know, angel oracles. There are so many different ones. I have, like I said, probably about 20 myself, and each one of them are completely different, and I love that. Like, some days I'll be thinking, oh, you know, I'd love to have a crystal with me today, but I don't know which one to choose. So I'll get out my crystal oracle deck, give it a shuffle, and see what crystal comes out. And you know, often it's the crystal that I need today. It has those metaphysical healing properties that I need. And then some days I really need some support from the higher realms, so I might try my angel oracle deck, and you know, I get a beautiful message from an angel or goddess or something from that deck. So oracle decks are really helpful, but because they have that certain flavor to the deck, sometimes you're asking questions and they're not being answered by the oracle deck, because that oracle deck is kind of just programmed to kind of give a certain answer. It might just be focusing on a certain thing. So this is why I do prefer tarot, generally speaking, because in those 78 cards within that structure, it's it's structured in a certain way so that you can ask a question and you'll get the answer that you need instead of just getting like a random crystal or an angel or something to guide you. The tarot will give you maybe a more clearer answer or a more definitive answer. I find that the messages from the tarot can really be more spot on or accurate depending on the question that you're asking. So it all really comes down to the question that you're asking the cards and the answers that you're looking for as to whether to use the tarot or oracle. So as I said, I have both. I use both pretty much daily. I'm sure like every day I'll pull a tarot card and an oracle card, or sometimes multiple cards. And I'll do that as part of my morning ritual to kind of get a bit of guidance for what to focus on for the day ahead, maybe finding out what's stopping me from meeting my goals, or just something else to reflect on throughout the day. And I really love the place that tarot provides in my life, as well as oracle cards, because as I said, they both have different messages to share, especially when you're working with multiple decks. Like I have a self-care oracle, so some days it's like, oh, what should I do for my self-care today? So I'll give that deck a shuffle and the most divine self-care activity will be revealed through that deck. So it's completely up to you and what it is that you're looking for. What answers are you looking for from your cards? And that will help you decide whether tarot is better, whether oracle is better. Maybe you need a different deck, or maybe, you know, I don't know. Sometimes it can also come down to interpretation. And I find that with tarot, because it's that structured 78 cards, you can easily kind of interpret the cards from different tarot decks because they all kind of have the same meaning. If you're pulling the Magician from one deck, it's going to have the same meaning as the Magician from another deck. However, in oracle decks, because you know, it's made up, the cards can have completely different meanings. So it can be harder to interpret on your own. Often with oracle decks, you'll need to look back in the guidebook for that interpretation. But in saying that, of course, you're always free to use your intuition when interpreting tarot or oracle. It doesn't always matter what it says in the guidebook. If you turn over a card and you look at that card and you instinctively feel like, oh, this is what that card's saying to me, then go with that instinctual interpretation, even if it's not what's in the guidebook. Like if you look in the guidebook and then you're like, oh, actually, no, that's what that card's saying. But that message from the guidebook may not be as relevant as what your intuition was telling you. So you can use your intuition to interpret both tarot or oracle decks. So I hope that really helps you to get an understanding of the differences between tarot and oracle decks and how to use both. Really, I love both. There's nothing wrong with using tarot or oracle or even using them in combination with each other. If you'd like to know more about reading tarot cards specifically, I have an online course for you, the Tarot Beginners course, which guides you through interpreting the 78 cards in really easy methods. I share with you simple tricks and tips to interpret the cards without having to memorize every single one of those 78 cards, and it really deepens your understanding of the deck through looking at these tips and tricks that I share in the Tarot Beginners course, which is now available in the Herbal Moon Goddess Academy. You'll find the link to enroll in the show notes. So have fun with your tarot and oracle decks. I'd love to know what you prefer. Do you prefer tarot or do you prefer oracle? Let me know. Send me a message on Instagram or Facebook. I'd love to know what you love best, tarot or oracle. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. Bye for now.